sustainable community schools. Oh, here we go. I do also agree that the Orleans Parish School Board is owed the $90 million from the city of New Orleans. I have a background in public finance. I have worked for many years with the city budget, with our elected officials, and with our groups across our community who advocate for the neighborhoods that they live in to get the investments that they need to make their communities work, thrive, and function. I have a lot of concerns about how we got to this place. I believe as a finance professional, we should always know what money is due and what money is owed. And that is true of my own household budget, and it's true of the city budget as well. So I'd like to bring this experience in public finance to City Hall so that we can make sure we are appropriately auditing our funds and making sure that payments are made as and how and when they should, so that our children can be educated, our streets can be paved, and we can make sure that we are acting in accordance with all best practices financially.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King.
Same question?
Same question. Yes, sir.
Well, yes, I believe in the 6 pillars to the sustainable community schools. I stood shoulder to shoulder with the school leaders, demanding that they get their money from the mayor's office, from the administration. I wasn't afraid to say these schools and these kids, and our kids, deserve their money. I want to take it a step further. I introduced a culture grant where we directly took money from the budget and gave to schools. So I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars from the culture grant established by myself and other council members of this council to make sure we can do any and everything possible that make sure our kids get the best education and the best opportunities moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, last November, New Orleans passed the Workers' Bill of Rights by 80%, sending a clear message that New Orleans stands with workers. Step Up has been working with the New Orleans Health Department to create the Healthy Workplace Program. How will you help employers in this city get in line with the Workers' Bill of Rights? And can we count on you to move resources to the Healthy Workplace Program, which will work with employers to improve working conditions? You have 1 minute.
Absolutely. I do support the Healthy Workplace Program, and I think 80% on any ballot initiative is a clear sign that we are onto something right. Everyone in the city of New Orleans that is a working professional, regardless of their industry, deserves a workplace where they are safe, respected, they can show up every day and earn a paycheck with dignity. And I believe that we need to work together to make that happen. I'd like to see some of our funds from the city be used to pilot programs to make it easier for small businesses to make these investments. What Step Up calls the high road employers, making sure we are identifying those folks who want to do the right thing by their employees, test out what works. We know it is not easy to be a small business owner in this city, but we know that a lot of these folks are our neighbors too, and they want to do the right thing. So let's find some easily achievable pilot programs, invest in them, and double down on what works to make sure our folks are going to work in a place where they feel safe every day.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, same question.
Yes. Employers' safety, wellness, mental health standards are very important, very vital. I've proven that I support this initiative through my time as a council member. I will continue to support this initiative as my time as a council member. And we have to get I think we need more input from the workers on how to make the workforce more safe and more equitable for everyone. So as your council member for District C, I will continue to do everything that I can to make the workplace healthy and support Step Up's initiatives in doing this.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrough.
I absolutely support this initiative. I work in the construction industry myself, and it is obviously one of the most dangerous industries that we have in the United States. And we, as a company that I work for, promotes safety in the workplace, and it is a culture that we have to build. I completely understand that there are other parts of industries in the city that are definitely not living up to that standard, and I am definitely ready to push forward for that and make sure that people have a living wage, a safe place to work with, and employers that are working with the program. I understand that there's definitely some issues that we have with small businesses that are trying to juggle multiple fronts on their small businesses, but I think that we can work together as a community of people to make sure that we have enough buy-in with the program, and especially echoing worker buy-in is the heart of this initiative, and I fully support unionization and people being able to have a voice in their workforce, whether it be an actual stake in the company or that we have workers councils that make sure that we have safe and great environment for the people that are working in this city.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, what will you do to continue to bring integrity, accountability, and transparency to the council to build trust with the community? You have 1 minute.
Well, Dr. Wyatt, I do that every day. I do that by being accessible. I do that being honest, and I do that being approachable by every member of every resident in District C. And I believe in having community meetings in every part of the district, hearing directly from those with the issues that concerns them the most, and not being afraid to give the truth, because I believe when you tell somebody a lie, you end up just making the situation worse. So I tell the truth no matter if that hurts or help my position, but it's important that you build a foundation on truth. So I would just continue to do what I've been doing for the past 3.5 years as a councilman for District C.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrough, same question.
I think that we have an issue generally with the city and transparency. I'm committed to working with the new mayor and their departments, because I think that we have a huge gap between the average person in the city and understanding what is happening. I kind of see the behind the scenes working into construction and seeing the inner workings of how we get things done in the city or they don't get done. But I definitely am committed to making sure that we have, good community meetings, to make sure that we're putting out, through social media, through the news, to make sure that the dialogue is happening and people understand exactly what is going on in the city. And I completely understand. We have so many things on so many different fronts, and a lot of people are especially frustrated about what's happening in their neighborhood or on their street. And communication is key. And I am completely committed to doing that, especially, having military experience, knowing how to communicate with people with diverse backgrounds, and getting the message out to make sure that we have a city that everyone understands is going on, what's happening.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Ms. Foster.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career in the government accountability and transparency space, teaching community classes on the city budget and building a website called the Big Easy Budget Game that we took across the city to tens of thousands of New Orleanians, where we asked people to kind of budget for the city themselves. What would you do if you were mayor for a day, so that we could teach our people how their government works, how it spends or doesn't spend money in accordance with the needs that they see on the ground every day. And I'd really like to bring that back as your city council person. I know it is incredibly hard to take time out of your day to go to City Hall and to stand in front of a microphone for 2 minutes and to read an agenda and to plug in. It's hard. And I think that there are more innovative ways we can hold our government accountable and offer people the information that they need to be engaged in their communities without the basic form of civic engagement we've seen for so many years. I'd really like to think about new and innovative ways we can plug people in their communities, get our hands dirty together, and start to give people the tools they need to hold their government accountable, because we have a lot of trust we've got to rebuild together, y'all. And it is not going to be easy, and it's not going to be overnight, but we've got to start now.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Ms. Foster, we're facing the reality of a city that could be underwater within just a handful of decades, and we are continuously dealing with climate events more and more. Now we are facing major cuts to the National Weather Service. Considering that we are under a federal administration that's actively hostile to climate justice, especially in Black communities, how will you create a sustainable New Orleans that will last for generations to come?
Thank you. This is a wonderful question, and one I think we all need to be thinking about, with not only a hostile federal administration, but a state administration that just cut one of the largest coastal restoration projects in the history of this country. It is an incredibly scary time to be facing down a hurricane season as a New Orleanian, and I think we are all going to have to think creatively, not just on the capital projects front, but on the community front, because we know, unfortunately, we have to get through these things as a people together all too often. What I think we can do on the infrastructure side is invest in the systems that are working. For the last 5 years, I've been the vice president of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority West, which is the levee board here on the West Bank. I know what it looks like when we spend government money well, when we have good, transparent, and accountable governance. and what we can do to make these systems better. I remember what our West Bank levees were like before, and I'm very proud of the system we've built since Katrina. We have to double down on what we have and what's working. And I think there's other ways we can invest in other systems. I know Entergy is undertaking a major grid hardening process right now, and we've got to make sure that that happens and then it does not happen at the ratepayer's expense alone.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, same
Dr. White,
question.
can you repeat the question, please?
We're facing the reality of a city that could be underwater within just a handful of decades, and we are continuously dealing with climate events more and more. Now we're facing major cuts to the National Weather Service. Considering that we are under a federal administration that's actively hostile to climate justice, especially in Black communities, how will you create a sustainable New Orleans that will last for generations to come?
Well, Dr. White, I believe you had to lean on those relationships that we have, and our relationship with Congressman Troy Carter, helping him fight on the national level to ensure that New Orleans is safe and protected as it relates to climate control, climate rise. I think we should look and see what we can do as a city, investing in more solar panels. We have a lot of land in New Orleans East and on the West Bank that we can make these solar panel farms a reality. Work with Entergy to harden our grid to make so when lights do go out, they go out at a shorter amount of time, and just invest in what we already have. We have levees that have been improved. We have roads that have been improved, just to continue to invest our resources in what we already have.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrough, same question.
We just lost Mr. Kimbrough, but as soon as he gets back in the waiting room, we'll let him in.
Okay, well, I apologize, you guys. We lost him, but as soon as we get him back, we'll ask the question of him. But in the meantime, is he back there yet,
Not
Maria?
not yet.
Mr. King, how will you balance historic preservation with the need for affordable housing in District C?
Quite simple, Dr. Wyatt. Listen to the residents. We need affordable housing. That is no secret. And our city is rich, old, historic city. But the main thing is listen to the residents and make sure whatever we do, it fits that particular neighborhood and it has community support. Without fitting in that particular neighborhood, without scaling into that neighborhood, without community support, any project, affordable housing or not, will fail. So listen to our community and have plenty community input. Plenty community input.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, same question.
Sure. I believe pretty strongly in the need for up to 40,000 additional units of housing to meet the demand in this city. This is a major priority for everyone running for office this year. I think we've got to be a little bit braver and a little bit bolder when we approach affordable housing, because if left to the voices of people who already have a safe place to call home and a roof over their head, we will not ever build 40,000 units of housing to provide for the rest of us. And I think it is too crucial at this time, and with the projects and investment we can see in District C, from the Naval Support Facility to DeGaulle Manor that has been abandoned for the majority of my lifetime, we're gonna need bold, brave leadership to make sure we move these projects forward, because we have too many folks in too deep of a need.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Maria, do we have Mr. Kimbrough back?
Yes, he's back.
Hi, Mr. Kimbrough. We lost you for a second. I apologize. I'll ask you the current question and then I'll backtrack to the last question that you did not get an opportunity to answer. Is that okay?
Thank you. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties.
No worries. Here's the question. You have 1 minute. How will you balance historic preservation with the need for affordable housing in District C?
I think that's a pretty easy one. I'm currently working on a project that we are in Algiers at the Turo Shakespeare home. It's going to be 52 affordable units. It is a great balance between a resilient structure and a 100-year-old almshouse that we're renovating to support, the elderly in our community. I think that working with, construction professionals, we work with VCC, we work with the city in a lot of different ways, and there is definitely a middle ground between preserving our historic character and building resilient structures. I mean, there a lot of our structures that we have in the city are actually fairly resilient. They've been around for 300 years. So I think that there's definitely a way that we can blend the two, especially we've got current projects that are going on now. It just takes usually some extra consultants that are making sure that we're following our national parks and state historic preservation office guidelines. But we can put a resilient roof on a historic structure. It is definitely possible. I'm doing it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Here's the question that you missed. We're facing the reality of a city that could be underwater within just a handful of decades, and we are continuously dealing with climate events more and more frequently. Now we're facing major cuts to the National Weather Service. Considering that we are under a federal administration that's actively hostile to climate justice, especially in Black communities, how will you create a sustainable New Orleans that will last for generations to come?
I think we need to take a hard look and understand that we're unfortunately going to go it alone, especially for the next 4 years. We are not in a state or a country now that really believes in climate change and the destructive power that we're going to experience all over the United States now. It's not just the Gulf South that's going to feel the brunt of it. We need a resiliency budget. I know that a lot of the projects that are funded through the city council now are through federal grants or through outside sources that the city council can use the money for the basic services, and then all the, not to say they're nice to have items, but they're items that we have resilience for. They just canceled today, or at least tomorrow, the Solar for All program that's supposed to have billions of dollars for cities and states across the country that are supposed to have solar power for residents to put on their homes or do microgrids or innovative solutions to make sure that we can have backup power. So we need to start looking at having serious budget considerations about having a resiliency budget and making sure that that's built into our budget program and it gets down to the lowest level.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Ms. Foster, what specific policies would you implement to combat gentrification and displacement in areas like Algiers Point and the French Quarter? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. The cost of living is increasing in every part of this city, but for longtime residents of areas like the Bywater, Algiers Point that are seeing pretty quick gentrification, certainly in the last 10 years, I think it's really important that we focus on cost of living adjustments for particularly seniors. I am a big fan of age-in-place programs that help older homeowners make the adjustments that they need, whether that's handicap accessibility, helping them pay for a wheelchair ramp or ADA upgrades, or maybe something like a layer of paint on your house so you're avoiding those blight fines and fees that might add up and get you to a place where you need to sell your house. I think there's a lot of small ways that we can be supportive of the people who have been in these communities, who deserve to stay in these communities, and who deserve to let their children and grandchildren grow up in these communities. With a little bit of investment, we can help make that happen. And it's going to be incredibly important as we continue to see people pushed out due to the cost of living.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough, same question.
I support foremost, getting grants down to the lowest level, and especially with homeowners that are definitely struggling with maintaining their property. I'm a homeowner. I work a 9 to 5, and it's still an unending task to live in a historic home. Especially, I live in Algiers Point. My wife works in the French Quarter, and I'm kind of intimately familiar with both of those neighborhoods. And I see, especially in the Point and the Quarter, there are places that we can be infilling housing, especially in the French Quarter, where we've got multiple buildings that you can walk around and see. The first floor is occupied, and then we've got 2 or 3 stories above that are completely empty that could be affordable housing or be retrofitted for better uses. And in Algiers Point, especially right across Opelousas, we have, in the McDonald neighborhood, we've got plentiful, lots that we can develop on it. And I think that we can get small developers in here and build affordable housing that doesn't displace residents, but it adds to the character of the neighborhood and make sure that, we can get people to stay in the neighborhood and not get pushed out.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, same question.
One more time, Dr. White, can you repeat that, please?
No worries. What specific policies would you implement to combat gentrification and displacement in areas like Algiers Point and the French Quarter?
Well, Dr. White, I will continue to do what I've been doing. One thing I've seen is code enforcement is used as a tool for developers and for residents to take advantage of those neighbors who can't get their house repaired in a timely fashion. They use code enforcement to levy fines against those owners, and then the owners can't pay their taxes, so they get the property at a tax sale. So I've stopped several code enforcement fines from being levied on people as I realized the games that were being played. I will work to increase home ownership. We always talk about renting, but we have to increase home ownership. And one thing I would do that I've already been doing is let people know their legal rights. A lot of times houses are lost. That's when gentrification steps in, because when Big Mama or Pawpaw dies, there's no will. The house is not properly passed down from generation to generation. So I will ensure that everyone knows their rights on how to protect their properties to ensure their future generations have a place to live and gentrification ceases.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. King, what are your plans to increase affordable housing units in both the East Bank and West Bank portions of District C?
Well, Dr. White, I've championed hundreds of affordable housing units on the East Bank, on the West Bank. One of the most recent was the development in Bywater. It has some community pushback, but by and large, we're working with the community, working with Hano. We were able to get about 80 affordable units built in Bywater. Also work with the developer in Algiers, who is right now fighting with safety and permits with temporary electricity to put about 70 units of affordable housing in the Algiers area around the Gall Manor. So I will once again continue to do what I'm doing, that's helping developers, meet them where they are, bring them to code enforcement, allow them to fight the red tape, work with communities, make sure that the housing that's being built is in scale and has that community support. It's not always easy, but bringing everyone together, we can see a path forward to where more affordable units are built in our district.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrell, same question.
I would use a multiple, pronged approach to solve the solution. We have to start being able to have backyard cottages in residential neighborhoods that increase density and allow for homeowners to, rent out the space that they create, and it's a low cost kind of solution. Also, we've got to get these empty lots developed that have, multiple units on here that we can go forward with that. Also, we've got, an issue just came out in the paper this week that we've got a shortage already in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So we've got to have permanent funding, and we really need to increase the funding for that to move forward, because I work with multiple developers and they're all vying for projects to get these off the ground. And I think that we're seeing that we have plentiful projects that can definitely bring affordable housing to both sides of the river, but we just kind of have a funding shortfall. And really the city is kind of the biggest driver right now to push that forward, because like we talked about with the climate change issue, is that we've got a state government and federal government that is not really interested in investing in affordable housing or pushing things down towards the local level that we can get issues solved.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Ms. Foster.
For the last 5 years, I've served as the executive director of the Algiers Economic Development Foundation, where I've worked really closely with a lot of developers trying to come to the Algiers community to build housing. I know exactly what the finance models and finance stacks look like for these projects because I've been hands-on with them for the last 5 years. And unfortunately, I also know where the gaps are in those finance models. It's really hard to put together a good housing project in anywhere in the state of Louisiana, but certainly in the city of New Orleans right now. So this is going to be true of East and West Bank. We've got to find developers who are reputable, who have good track records in other communities, because I am tired of cleaning up after slumlords here on the West Bank and certainly across the city. Bring them in, work collaboratively with the state of Louisiana, the resources we have there, with our federal government and our federal partners, and our local funding as well.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrell, what is your plan to improve drainage, roads, and sewer systems in District C? You have 1 minute.
Starting with drainage, I support an additional fee that we've got that's going through the council, kind of through the initial process right now, to make sure that all property owners are equally paying for our drainage system. I know it came out recently that 50% of our properties are owned by nonprofits and are not paying into the property tax system we've got. and that directly funds our drainage system. And now that it's consolidated, we have a shortfall that we can only get a handful of our drainage system cleaned out, ready to go for these definitely for these new climate emergencies that we're going through. Infrastructure. I mean, we need to increase the infrastructure funding. I think that there's been a report out that we're short $30 million every year to keep the infrastructure that we have going forward. We're getting this grant from FEMA that's rebuilding a lot of our streets. My street just got repaved in the last month, but we're going to have to continue to keep those streets viable. We can't just do it. It's not a one-time fix. And working construction is like maintenance is always a thing, and that's really the devil in the details with this issue. Is that we've got to increase maintenance funding and continue
Thank
to
you,
keep
Mr.
repairing
Kimbrough.
our streets going forward.
Ms. Foster, same question.
Sure. These are hard ones to answer in a minute. When it comes to funding infrastructure, I think I do personally support a stormwater fee. This is a really hard one for me because I know that we are all incredibly cost burdened right now. So when I say I support a stormwater fee to help us fund the improvements we need in that system, that has got to be an equitable one that is going to charge more to the larger properties and commercial properties and far less to me, mom, papa, who are already struggling to make ends meet. I know the city is also looking at putting a bond issuance on the next ballot, and I think it's going to be important for all of us to rally around that, make sure we understand what exactly would be invested in and fixed with that bond issuance, and then start thinking about a long-term plan, 20 years plus, for infrastructure improvements to make sure that we are thinking strategically and critically about the needs we have and the needs our children are going to have.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King.
Dr. Watt, we need to hold DPW. We need to hold Sewage and Water Board accountable. Far too often they start projects and don't finish. Far too often they start projects and do a half job with completing the projects. We're going to have a millage voted on this year. I will support that millage. I've already identified areas, both East and West Bank, that have been neglected for years, almost decades, that I will make sure streets are repaired and drainage are repaired. Drainages will be repaired in those areas. I've already worked with DPW to identify those areas, and just pretty much a common sense approach. Stop kicking the can down the road, stop doing the deferred maintenance, and fix the issue as soon as it starts.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, how would you address reoccurring trash pickup issues and sanitation service gaps in District C?
Absolutely. I know we've all been frustrated by lots of headlines about trash pickup in District C for the last couple months. I think it has been lost to a lot of us how much the cost of labor has gone up since COVID. I know that we're all used to, for a long time, getting twice a week trash pickup, and we're still paying for it. It's coming once a week. I understand that the cost of that service has gone up, and we're kind of at that price point now. So I think we need to really consider whether we raise that budget, whether we raise trash pickup fees, or if we can all get by on a once a week pickup with consolidated drop-off points, particularly for things that are harder to get rid of, like bulky items or waste. It's hard for us here on the West Bank to make it all the way across the river, so I am glad we're partnering with the city of Gretna to have a transfer point here on the West Bank, but we are going to have to start thinking creatively if we need those resources here in Algiers.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, same question.
What's that question again, Dr. Saul?
How would you address recurring trash pickup issues and sanitation service gaps? 1 minute.
Dr. White have already addressed that. You can look at my record when it comes to the sanitation issue in the French Quarter. Stood up and fought for the people and the businesses of that area. I've worked with Mayor Belinda Constance to bring the first bulk transfer station, not just to the district, but to the city, with the city of Gretna. You can pass down General de Gaulle right now and see work being done already. Those are things that I'm not going to talk about doing. Those are things that I have done and will continue to do. And lastly, it's important to tell people the truth. The mayor and the administration, they negotiate the trash contract, they negotiate the trash services contract. So it's important to have council members, community members involved when those negotiations take place in the future.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrough, how would you address reoccurring trash pickup issues and sanitation service gaps in District C?
I think we need to look at, hard look at, who our vendors are that we're using for trash pickup and really talk about the cost, and especially with, rising costs for labor and the equipment that they're using, but also that we have, only a set number of people that can actually pick your trash up. And I think that there's an issue with that. And I think that we need to look at possibly, a public solution for that. I'm glad that we're getting a transfer point in Gretna over here for the West Bank residents of District C. But I think that we really need a hard look at how we can improve service and really how our rates are looking at going forward as we move forward to look for innovative solutions to get this problem fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Mr. King, what is your stance on Entergy's role in New Orleans and the council's oversight of utility services? 1 minute.
Well, the council is the regulator of utilities. We have fought Entergy. We have went to battle with Entergy on behalf of our residents. I'll continue to do that. Entergy, they work for us, and we need to let them know that. Entergy, when pushed, they show up for the people of this city. So I will just continue to push Entergy, to hold them accountable, and work with my colleagues, be the voice, be the advocate for the residents of this city.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrell, what is your stance on Entergy's role in New Orleans and the council's oversight of utility services? You have 1 minute.
So my position on Entergy is that we need to make sure that they actually pay for the service that they're supposed to be providing. So we have the largest number of sunny day outages, and we have a crumbling grid that Entergy is not very willing to keep and to maintain. I fully support making Entergy a public utility again, and buying it back from the energy conglomerate that serves several states. We're one of the only cities that can regulate our utility, but it needs to be our own utility that's interested in, powering the people of the city, not giving away, their profits to Wall Street. I mean, Entergy gave over $1 billion back to Wall Street investors in the last 5 years. And then they come to the city council and cry poverty and say that they can't, and, it needs to come on the back of ratepayers. And we've seen that where they, put these recovery fees on us. And then they also, we're getting money back because they provide inadequate power from their, power generation system, especially their nuclear power plants. And we've got, I think it's $250 million that, we need to spend out of the settlement. And that needs to go to, microgrids, solar
Thank
power,
you, Mr. Kimbrell.
and building back, grids. Thank you.
Ms. Foster, what is your stance on Entergy's role in New Orleans and the council's oversight of utility services? You have 1 minute.
I'd like to see significantly more detailed management and regulation of Entergy. As again, somebody with a background in public finance, y'all, I'm a nerd for good here. We have got to demand a management audit of Entergy and the way that they are doing business outside of their quarterly stakeholder reports, which is currently the only financial reporting that they are doing publicly or to council. I want to see detailed financial statements every time they're coming to me asking for a rate hike. I cannot base my decision to pass along costs to our people, our incredibly cost burdened people, without better and significantly more financial information. Unfortunately, I don't see a way that we can move Entergy back to being a public utility because the cost of acquiring those assets is going to be valued astronomically high. And so we're going to have to work within the regulatory system, however broken it may be, that we have and that we have inherited. The best we can do is hire the people who know how to do that kind of financial analysis and data and hold them to account.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrell, what is your strategy to reduce violent crime and improve public safety in District C? You have 1 minute.
Well, I'm fully supportive of community policing programs and making sure that we have support services that augment our police force. I want to make sure that we have response units that are not police officers that can respond to domestic issues and issues that do not always require a police officer. I think there's innovative solutions that we've got throughout the country that other departments have gone through that are lessening the burden on officers and making sure that we have community policing that goes through community programs, support services, and then, making sure that we have the adequate, staffing that we need that does not always have to be included an officer.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Ms. Foster, what is your strategy to reduce violent crime and improve public safety in District C? You have 1 minute.
I think we've all seen what happens when we have effective leadership at NOPD, and what happens when we make these investments that are making sure our officers' time is being prioritized. As the mobile crisis intervention units are rolling out, those officers are not responding to just every person who's in some form of crisis, every car accident. They're able to prioritize the violent crimes that are happening across District C every day. There is still violent crime happening, even if that rate is going down. And I'm glad to see we've got the right leadership in place, but we've got to make sure that this is a sustainable future for us. We can't see these rates go back up. And so I want to make sure that we are investing in NOPD leadership from the bottom up so that we are able to promote from within and ensure that we've got a strong base of leadership going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, what
Dr.
steps
White.
would you take? I'm sorry, I was just going to give you the question again.
Go
You
ahead,
can go.
please do.
You
Please do,
remember?
please do.
Okay. What is your strategy to reduce violent crime and improve public safety in District C?
Dr. White, you can't stop crime with police. If we could have, the city would have been safe, and we had over 1,000 officers in the 90s. I will continue to do what I've been doing, taking our city money and investing directly into our communities, working with Ubuntu Village, working with Silverback Society, doing what I've been doing, taking my time, going to mentor to these young individuals who lack that dispute resolution skill, going to JGIC, the Juvenile Justice Center, let them see how you can be successful coming from the same neighborhood I came from, going to the same schools I came from. That's how you stop violent crime. You stop it before it starts by showing these young men and women that they can be a successful person in this city. It's not with police. It's good we have community policing, but I want to go to the root cause first.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, do you support alternative policing models or increasing funding for NOPD? Why or why not? You have 1 minute.
I think we all know we can't arrest our way out of being a city with deep poverty. We've tried that. We've tried it for decades. We've tried it for more than my lifetime. We have got to find ways to treat people who are in crisis, people who have experienced significant trauma and generational trauma, people who are dealing with addiction, and people who are coming back from this system that we have been feeding and feeding and feeding for generations. It is very important that we find other ways to help people re-enter our society and not to continue the system of incarceration that has given us the worst title in America of one of the most incarcerated cities in the world. What a shameful title for us. I would love to see us continue to deprioritize arrest and incarceration and make sure we are focused on holistic treatment of people, trauma, and crisis.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, do you support alternative policing models or increasing funding for NOPD? Why or why not? You have 1 minute.
Yes, I support alternative policing models. Too often when I've heard and I've seen police go to a scene to realize the person they were going to look at had a mental issue. They had a drug issue. There is no way, the police aren't trained for that. So I like to see social workers or people who are trained to help those individuals on a scene. And I think once you have that, you will see a better relationship between community and police as it relates to those individuals, those drug or mental issues who, like I said before, don't need a police officer on the scene. They need a social worker, a trained person to know what they're going through.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrell, do you support alternative policing models or increasing funding for NOPD? Why or why not? You have 1 minute.
I definitely support alternative policing models. I think that that's the future of policing in the city. We definitely need to, stop the cycle. I mean, I think that we see at the state level that there are definitely, corporations and people that are interested in incarcerating our people, for profit. And I see this as a rotating cycle. And, the quicker that we can get people into a program that is not, pushes them into being incarcerated, it is going to create, lasting results for the city. I think that, especially when they get out as well, we've got a dearth of issues. We've got, ban the box that has luckily been passed, but we're still having issues with employers, discriminating against that, making sure that we have job training. I know that, I work in construction and I have, people that have been formerly incarcerated and have gotten a good skill and, turned their life around and are great productive people in society. And I think that we need to, lift up people out of poverty. And that really, that brings, our crime down when we have people that are being productive. And it can definitely, go a different way than just putting people in jail.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, how will you work with community organizations to address root causes of crime like poverty and lack of youth engagement? You have 1 minute.
Doc, I've already done that, and we're already doing that with the culture grant that was established 3 years ago when I first came to council. That was my idea. With that culture grant, we give money, again, our tax-paying money to those nonprofits, because one day, Councilmember Freddie King, this entire council, the administration, they won't be here, and their ideas go with them. But it's important that we keep these funding bridges alive and strong. So when we leave, those funding mechanisms are still in place to support the groups that's boots on the ground and the groups that's doing the great work, that has been doing the great work and will continue to do the great work.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Kimbrough, how will you work with community organizations to address root causes of crime like poverty and lack of community engagement? You have 1 minute.
I think, solving poverty, is getting people a living wage. And I support unionization efforts and making sure that, you get what, out of your 40-hour week that you're actually making a living wage. And I think that's kind of the root part of poverty that we have in the city, is that we have people that are working hard that just cannot get ahead. And then also, for their children as well. I'm a parent and I struggle, just like everybody else, with childcare. We need to, increase pre-K tuition so we can have universal pre-K. That gets a whole year off of paying for childcare for working families. And we definitely need to get into communities and get kids, into sports and get in outside activities and make sure that we have funding for, NORD programs and all of our other organizations that help support that kind of ecosystem. Because, I faced it as a parent this summer where, there are definitely weeks where I don't have, a plan for my child. And we just kind of have to, struggle till we get to school year. And I'm lucky that, I can find solutions, but I can definitely know that there are other parts of District C that people
Thank
are
you,
not
Mr.
in that
Kimbrough.
situation.
Ms. Foster, how will you work with community organizations to address root causes of crime like poverty and lack of community engagement? You have 1 minute.
I've been working in the community advocacy space here in New Orleans for about 15 years, and I know that there are amazing groups doing incredibly good work here. And to me, this comes down to trust. As an aspiring city council person, I think we can all agree that when you have a problem or when you are in crisis in New Orleans, you don't call a bureaucrat. You call your pastor, you call your neighbor, you call the person who has provided you a service in the past. You call your neighbor your neighbor. That's just who we are as a people. We're relational. And there are great, amazing, great groups in this city with those relationships. If we are not using them as a government, we are losing out because they have deep, deep trust and deep ties to people that trust them. And that is the only way to get people into city services, is through a little bit of trust that goes a long way.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough, what steps would you take to make District C more resilient to flooding and hurricanes? You have 1 minute.
We need to work to start living with water. I know that we've talked about the levee system and fighting, the Mississippi River, especially, and Lake Pontchartrain, and keeping water out of our neighborhoods. There's definitely some great initiatives that are already going on with the water district in Gentilly. We've got water infrastructure that's going, I know, up in St. Rock that, diverts water and doesn't overwhelm our storm system. I mean, it is a huge infrastructure cost, and I'm definitely, looking for ways to make sure that we can fund that through, through city debt, through federal programs, to make sure that we're, diverting that water and making sure that we, start living with it. Because ultimately, the pumps can only manage a certain amount, to pump. for the first hour and then continuing on, and they're going to get overwhelmed as climate, change worsens in this country. We're going to have to start living and understanding that we might have to, raise homes. There's a multiple ways that we can, build resilient infrastructure that is not just fighting the water that we have coming into our city.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Ms. Foster, what steps would you take to make District C more resilient to flooding and hurricanes? You have 1 minute.
District C is exceptional in so many ways, but one of those is that we're the only district in New Orleans City Council that has 2 separate levee systems. We have a sewage and water board system that is fed from 2 separate electrical grids. It's a very different and unique world because you are really dealing with kind of 2 separate issues. I think we have the chance across the district to make sure we're slowing water. So finding ways to retain it, whether that's requiring retention ponds in large development projects, or creating more green space trees that we know love to drink a lot of water, like live oaks, or just encouraging everyday residents to depave their front yards through something like the Front Yard Initiative, or investing in a rain barrel. There's a lot of little things we can all do together, but we've got to have good city leadership to make sure we're investing in the big stuff too.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, what steps would you take to make District C more resilient to flooding and hurricanes? You have 1 minute.
Well, Dr. White, thank you. I will continue to do what we're doing as it relates to working with our neighborhood groups. People like Ms. Cheryl Austin and Tremeva Waterwise, they have the experts, they have the knowledge. No need to reinvent the wheel. Lean on their expertise and see how we can make District C more resilient as it relates to flooding. Stop the deferred maintenance. Too often, the cost is kicked down the road, the maintenance is kicked down the road, and 20, 30, 40 years later, you see, hey, this is a problem. It's not a problem now. It's been a problem. And continue to work with our federal partners. Look at the Gulf, General de Gaulle, they're widening and deepening the canal that runs down the Gulf. That's going to help with the flooding that you see all too often on the Gulf. So work with partners who already have the knowledge, stop doing the deferred maintenance and continue to work with our federal partners on projects that they have going on in our city right now.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, how you advocate for better public transportation, especially connecting Algiers to the rest of the city? You have 1 minute.
Absolutely. I'm a transit rider myself. I take the ferry, the bus, and my bicycle, most places that I go. And I think it is an incredibly hard way to live, especially for Algerians. I moved here to Algiers when I graduated college because I worked service industry in the French Quarter. I took the ferry in every day. And at the time, after Katrina, there was no night bus back. And it was devastating. I spent a lot of time hanging out. It is a thing we are going to have bold leadership on, because we know that people who ride transit do not have a lot of voice in government. It is tough to deprioritize single occupancy vehicles, but we are going to have to do it if we are going to reduce traffic on the West Bank, because y'all, this bridge is brutal. It has to happen. It is too important, as our workforce gets pushed farther and farther out of our city, for them not to have a way to get to work, to good jobs on time.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, how will you advocate for better public transportation, especially connecting Algiers to the rest of the city? You have 1 minute.
Sure, Dr. White, thank you. As a lifelong Algiers resident, a 4th-generation Algiers resident, I know the importance of getting from the East to West Bank, whether it's for school or whether it's for work. One thing that I will continue to do, not just talk about it, not just start to do it, is make sure that the ferry is funded every year. Every year under my term as council member, there's talks about cutting the ferry services, but every year I step up to the plate and ensure that the residents of Algiers, residents of this city, doesn't lose their ferry service. Also, look at the bus rapid transit system. It's important to get all residents who have a stake in the game to get their voice, because if you listen to a certain few, you kind of lose sight of what works for everybody. So once again, community service, community input, that's what you need. And I will continue to do what I've been doing, is funding the ferry every year.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrough, how will you advocate for better public transportation, especially connecting Algiers to the rest of the city? You have 1 minute.
I live in Algiers Point. My wife works in the quarter, and we're frequently on the ferry. I support keeping the extended hours that are currently going through the pilot program and making sure that we have continued funding for that. I want to institute a boarding fee for cruise ships to divert that money per passenger into the ferry system, because currently the RTA does not consider the ferry to be a funded expense because they inherited from DOTD. Also, I'm a huge proponent of making sure that we have our bus rapid transit system actually comes to fruition. The East and Lower Algiers are, disparate parts of the city, but you have to get downtown to usually get to work. Also, I'm a cyclist as well, and I advocate for, a fully connected system of bike lanes that we have in the city, because, we've seen recently, I was out with, some community groups riding around, and we've had 2 deaths from people that, have been hit on a street, especially St. Claude, that just has 2 lines painted on the street. And we basically, that's a good solution. Is bikes are a low cost option to get people around the city, but we have to have a safe infrastructure system to make sure that they're riding on fully protected bike lanes.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, do you support expanding bike lanes and pedestrian infrastructure? You have 1 minute.
Absolutely, Doc. I rode St. Claude with Bike Easy. I rode with residents of the community, and I had a meeting last week, and I brought in DOTD. I brought in our local state elected officials, and I brought in members of the community so we can all learn from each other, learn what's needed, and get the truth, not just get pie in the sky ideas, but get the truth as to how long it'll take to get the bike lanes implemented, where the money's going to come from, and whose responsibility is it. So I fully support protected bike lanes in our community, and I will continue to fight for that.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, do you support expanding bike lanes and pedestrian infrastructure? You have 1 minute.
I do, and this is not a new stance for me. I have been a bike commuter for over a decade, and I'm really frustrated by the deaths that we've had in this district recently. I've painted too many ghost bikes in my lifetime. I've stood beside too many family members whose loved ones died a preventable death. It is a form of violence in our streets that is fully an infrastructure problem, and one that we can work creatively with the state of Louisiana to solve. It is a best practice to have safe spaces for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers, and bus commuters, right? A complete street for everyone, where everyone has a safe place to be. It is the only way we are going to reduce these unnecessary and tragic deaths, and I absolutely never want to paint another ghost bike again.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough, do you support expanding bike lanes and pedestrian infrastructure? You have 1 minute.
I absolutely do. We definitely need to look at our master plan, because, being a cyclist, I've definitely been on a protected bike lane and then dumped onto a street that is supposed to be a low traffic street that is doesn't need a protected bike lane. But we need a fully integrated system that can get you from all parts of the city, not just District C, but all districts in the city, to make sure that you can ride on a protected bike lane. And then for the pedestrianation of the of areas in the city. So I fully support, pedestrianizing Bourbon Street to make sure that it's safe for visitors, our service workers, and our residents on that city. And it can be easy solutions too. It's always usually an infrastructure problem. We need to make sure that we have sidewalks that are wide enough and flat enough for, our disabled neighbors to get around, or just people that are walking on the side of the street. That is one of the biggest things that we have, is that the sidewalk gets torn up, never gets repaired, and then people are in the street and interacting with car traffic. I think that we have the space on pretty much every street we have, and we definitely need to look at how much parking do we have on the street. How much are we interacting between all modes of transportation?
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. Kimbrough, how will you ensure marginalized communities in District C have a voice in city decision-making? You have 1 minute.
So, going beyond the idea of just having community meetings, we need to have, institute a full participatory, budget program in the city. And we have to have, I'm glad that the city council now has, the budget meetings where they tell how the budget works. But, we need to have that where we have people from each, district that can be part of the council and provide ideas and make sure that we're, allocating funds correctly. And then also just city issues. We have to have, community, we really need to have community councils within the city council, and that, report regularly to city council members, and, have a real voice going forward. Because, I think that we talked about already, is like getting in front of the council and having your, 15 minutes of fame is usually not enough to, get and flesh out, the complex issues that we've got, especially in District C, where we have such a varied geographic landscape with the East and West Bank part of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, how will you ensure marginalized communities in District C have a voice in city decision-making? You have 1 minute.
Dr. White, first of all, I think it's important to identify who are those marginalized communities. They're often our children. I will continue to do what I've been doing, bringing our children in City Hall for council meetings, having them work with me every summer. I hire multiple interns so they can see just how government works and how government doesn't work. And if they want to change, they can see what change needs to be made. I will also go to the communities. It's important that we go meet people where they are. Another marginalized group is our elderly. I often go to our communities, our senior centers, our senior homes, and talk directly to the elderly, because they can't always come to City Hall, park, and walk to where they need to go. So it's about going, meeting people where they are, and giving our youth an opportunity to see what City Hall is about and how it works.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, how will you ensure marginalized communities in District C have a voice in city decision-making? You have 1 minute.
As I've already said, I really love questions about civic engagement and civic participation. This is my passion. The city of New Orleans currently has incredibly few codified ways for people to plug into government. Short of going down to City Hall and getting your 2 minutes in front of a microphone, there isn't a lot out there for you by law to guarantee your voice in government decision making. And in that, we see a lot of the voices that we're hearing from are people with time, resources, money, and privilege. Working people, hustlers, youth, the elderly, right? Those of us that are just busy, parents. It's really hard for us to show up. And so I'd like to revisit the idea of a community participation plan, something we advocated for hard in the 90s and after Katrina, to make sure that we are codifying by law ways for people to engage in their government, so that even after an election and another election and another election, no matter who your elected official is, you are guaranteed a voice in City Hall outside of city council meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, what is your approach to community engagement and transparency? You have 1 minute.
I can answer every email that's sent to me personally. I go to every meeting that I'm invited to. I have office hours, weekly office hours on the East Bank and the West Bank for those who can't come to City Hall. So I'm all about transparency. I'm all about community engagement. I go to the schools. I talk to the schools, to the students. I go to the senior citizen centers and to the senior citizens' houses individually. I talk to them. I go to the churches. So getting out of the office, getting from behind the desk, going into the community, and let people see your face. Let them see you care. That's how you take care of community engagement. That's what I'm about.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, what is your approach to community engagement and transparency? You have 1 minute.
My approach here is the same it's been throughout my entire career. It's consistency. The only way you can build trust with a community that has been let down time and time again is through showing up every time. It is incredibly important, and something I did at my job at the Algiers Economic Development Foundation with the Committee for Better New Orleans when I was teaching the city budget and civics. It is so important to make sure you are there every time, that you answer the phone every time, that email gets answered even when you're tired and you've just got a lot of emails, because it happens. But that is the privilege of public service. That is the privilege of this office. And if I am offered the opportunity to serve the people of District C, I will make sure that I am showing up just like I always have for the last 15 years, because it is too important not to.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough, what is your approach to community engagement and transparency? You have 1 minute. Did we lose him? Mr. Kimbrough?
I, I think the biggest issue is that, most neighbors don't actually. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Mr. Kimbrough, I'm going to pause your time. Can we do a check of your speaker? Speak for me
I'm
so we
sorry,
can
can you hear
hear
me?
you. I can hear you. Can everyone hear him? They can hear you now, Mr. Kimbrough. I'll start your time right now. Would you like the question again before you start? Mr. Kimbrough? Maria, can you hear Mr. Kimbrough?
No, I can't. I think he hopped off the call. He might
We
be,
lost him again?
yeah, unfortunately. He's dealing with some connectivity issues as well.
No worries. When he pops back in, we'll do the same thing. In the meantime, I'll move on. If the other candidates, Ms. Foster and Mr. King, do you mind?
I do not mind.
So I'll clear his time. And then I'll go to the next question. Ms. Foster, what experience do you have that uniquely qualifies you to represent such a diverse district? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, absolutely. District C is exceptional, y'all, I'm telling you. I worked citywide with the Committee for Better New Orleans for 7 years, and a year before that with the New Orleans Coalition on Open Governance. So I've worked in every corner of this city. And for the last 5 years, I've just been focused here in Algiers as the executive director of the Algiers Economic Development Foundation. I've also been a neighborhood president. I've been on a lot of different nonprofit boards. I've been president. And I think that that is the most important skill that I have is have the partnerships I've built over the last 15 years of policy work in good governance and transparency and public finance and community leadership in economic development, in cost of living, in affordable housing. I know how these systems work because I've been working them for the last 15 years. And we've got to make sure we're hitting the ground running on day one because we have serious issues we've got to address before we lose any more of our people to Texas, to out of state, to better jobs somewhere else.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. King, what experience do you have that uniquely qualifies you to represent such a diverse district? You have 1 minute.
And to Dr. White, I have the experience of living my entire life in District C. That is not the only thing that's needed, but I have relationships that have been built, that have been fostering since I was born. I worked it. I worked in city council years ago for a council member, and what I learned from that situation is how to do what doesn't work and how to do what works. So I took the good things from my experience at the time and brought them to the council. And I have done a great job as council member of District C, realizing that every neighborhood in the district is different. And like I tell constituents, I have 5 kids. I don't treat them all the same, but I treat them all equitably and fairly. And you can't treat every neighborhood in District C the same because they're not the same, but you should definitely treat them all fairly and equitably. That's what I've been done. That's what I've been doing, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Thank you, Mr. King. Did we get Mr. Kimbrough back before I move to the next question? Maria?
No, we haven't, unfortunately.
I apologize to those of you who are listening in and you were looking forward to what Mr. Kimbrough had in terms of his platform. Should we get him back, I'll catch him up with the questions. But in the meantime, we'll continue to move on.
Oh, he's back. He's under
Back?
Blackmore. I'm so sorry, Mr. Kimber. I was looking for your name.
I apologize. Yeah, we're having
Oh,
some technical difficulties over here. I
no
think I'm plugged
worries. No worries. We want to make certain that you have an opportunity to address those who have joined us on the call as well. So we'll backtrack. And unfortunately, you'll have 2 questions back to back, and then we'll move to the next question. Is that okay?
in. No, go right ahead.
Mr. Kimbrough, what is your approach to community engagement and transparency? You have 1 minute.
So I think that we, need to move forward and, use technology that we've got. And I think that there's definitely some issues that we have with getting information out. I mean, I look at council agendas, I go and look on the website, and I think that there's, the average person has no idea what's going on in the city government. I know that there's, communications offices in every department and everywhere. And I think that we need to have a, more coordinated strategy to get the information out, because I think that there's some things that are definitely going, well in the city that we need to, promote. There's definitely issues that, that people are frustrated with. I know at multiple levels that we're trying to get fixed. And it needs to be, a dialogue between, residents of the city and the city government, and making sure that, we're meeting people face to face, meeting people online, really meeting people where they are, to make sure that we're, that we're having transparency at all levels of, our government.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Mr. Kimbrell, what experience do you have that uniquely qualifies you to represent such a diverse district? You have 1 minute.
So, I mean, I really, in a lot of things, pull on my experience being a, veteran and serving our country for, over 15 years. I've served with, people of all stripes. And I think that that makes me unique, where, I can speak to people that, have different backgrounds and have different experiences. And, I'm definitely a person that has had, over my 15 years of experience in the military, is like having to meet people where they are. We definitely have, people that are not interested in participating in things, and making sure that we bring them along. I think that there's, a lot of issues that we've got that really, being a leader, getting out and making sure that, we can talk to people, and especially, I'm comfortable doing that. And I think that that's a great skill that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Ms. Foster, how will you hold yourself accountable to your constituents between elections? You have 1 minute.
If I know one thing about District C, they're going to let me know. But I do think it is important to hold yourself accountable too. And to me, I'm a big fan of metrics. I can't stress it enough. I'm a numbers girl, y'all. It's important to me to make sure that I'm setting goals for myself, not even for the district, not even for our city, but for me as a leader. And I need to make sure I'm hitting those goals every week, every month, every year. And I think it's pretty clear when things aren't working. And if that seems to be the case, then we've all got to talk about that and decide what we need to do differently together to make sure that this is leadership that is working for this district.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrell, how will you hold yourself accountable to your constituents between elections? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. I don't think that there's going to be an issue with people reaching out and letting you know how things are going at District C. I think that's a pretty common thing. Did a Reddit AMA, for the campaign, and definitely heard literally everything that I
Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Is that on our end, Mr. Kimbrell? Can you hear us?
yeah, I think it's on mine actually.
No worries. I stop your time so that it doesn't interfere. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You can continue with your, how will you hold yourself accountable to your constituents?
No, I think it's just, making sure you meet with people. I mean, that's the thing, is like being available. I know Councilman King kind of talked about it. It's like, you have to, be face to face with people. And I think that goes a long way, basically. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Mr. King, how will you hold yourself accountable to your constituents between elections? You have 1 minute.
You have to be there, Dr. Y. You have to go to where the constituents are and hear directly from them. Hear them when they tell you you're doing a good job, and hear them when they tell you you're not doing a good job. I respond to all of my emails, like I said before, so I know personally and directly what needs to be done, what's being done, and what is not being done. I set goals for myself, and I could check every box if I'm doing the right thing to achieve those goals. And if I'm not, I look back and see what I'm not doing. So we set goals to reduce blight, check, done. Set goals to invest in NAR, check, done. Set goals to support small businesses, check, that's been done. And being honest with myself about, am I doing this? Am I not doing this? And lastly, when I go to the grocery store and someone say, Councilman, how's it going? I say, no, you tell me how it's going. I want to hear from you. I want you to tell me, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And what I can do better?
Thank you, Mr. King. Maria,
Yes.
I need you to set a 30-second countdown timer. Yeah, gotta forgive me. I was trying to do like 15 things at the same time. So the timer I had is not changing over to the 30-second. Do you have it, Maria, or do I need to bring up one?
I have one. I was just trying to get it prepped up to share on the screen if you like.
Nope,
Not, I can just observe it.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. You can, if you wanna, candidates, would you like it on the screen because it is a faster pace? Would that help you, hearing the beeping that I've been doing? Would that work for you?
It's either one for me.
Ms. Foster,
I think either one's fine.
Mr. Kimbrough?
We can have it on the screen. That's fine.
Okay, so I'll have it set on my side and you'll hear it. So we're gonna start, this is the hot round. Each of these questions will only be 30 seconds. You will hear, there's a 30-second timer. When it goes off, if you're in the middle of a thought, I'll give you a few seconds to complete your thought. And if you run over that, I'll just simply say, thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Thank you, Ms. Foster. Thank you, Mr. King. This is the hot round, 30 seconds. And we're going to start with Mr. King. Mr. King, our parent union has been fighting for years to create safe riding conditions for our children to school. How will you create a city hall that functions and does basic things like inspecting school buses? You have 30 seconds.
Well, Dr. White, I think it's important to have a relationship with the schools, with the school buses. I am not on the school board, but I do have relationships with every school board member that's in my district. And I also have great relationships with the school board leaders. So working along with them, working along with the community, that's how we get that task done. And that's what I will continue to do. I said it before, work with community and work with the leaders that we already have and foster those relationships.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Foster, same question.
It's my understanding that the city of New Orleans does inspect school buses. And so while that is an administrative directive to make sure that that office is open at hours at which school buses aren't picking up and dropping off children, I think that that is another place that a council person could partner with the administration and with Orleans Parish School Board to make sure that this is happening. Because with a decentralized school system, we've got kids going all the way from Algiers to the east and vice versa. We've got to have a functioning system to get them there safely.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough.
So I would say that we definitely need to have, it's regular inspections. I do that on the construction site every day. We do inspections. It has to be, through Orleans Parish School Board. I'm definitely committed to working with all the school board members to make sure that we, this as an essential function that happens and is, annotated and make sure that we have, transparency that we're doing this going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Ms. Foster, what are you doing to protect New Orleanians from rising utility bills, including Entergy, Sewage and Water Board, and now Delta Utilities?
I think it's incredibly important, like I said earlier, to make sure that we are really looking at those financial statements, more meaningful financial statements before we are ever passing along a yes vote on a rate increase. Our people are already too cost burdened. Their cost of energy bills have gone up 85% in the last several years. That is untenable, while other costs are rising as well.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough, what are you doing to protect New Orleanians from rising utility bills, including Entergy, Sewage and Water Board, and now Delta Utilities?
So two of those organizations are, owned by private equity, and I'm not going to vote for a rate increase really going forward because I don't think that they're being honest of they're making a billions of dollars in profits that they're passing on to ratepayers. Sewage and Water Board, is a public utility, and a lot of their problems is investing in the infrastructure now that they're kind of saddled with. And I'm not for rate increases going forward. I think that they definitely make plenty enough money that before we need to have a conversation about that.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, what are you doing to protect New Orleanians from rising utility bills, including Entergy, Sewage and Water Board, and now Delta Utilities?
Dr. Wild, I can tell you what I have done, what I will continue to do. We helped implement the smart meter, which has reduced a lot of bills through sewage and water board. A lot of meters were being read incorrectly. Now several thousand meters are being read correctly. I can't tell you how many times I received an email from a business, from a constituent saying, Councilmember King, look at this bill. It's not correct. I don't pass the buck. I don't say, hey, it's not my job. I reach out to sewage and water board. I reach out to Entergy and say, hey, fix this bill. It needs to be corrected. And I have successfully done that hundreds of times.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. King, should you earn the vote of the citizens of District C, what will be your top 3 priorities in your first year in office?
Well, Dr. Watt, one thing you haven't heard many people talk about is crime, because crime is down. And when crime is down, we can live and focus on other things. So I will continue to make sure crime stays down in my capacity as a council member, because when crime is down, crime is something that affects everyone. I will continue to support small business and economic growth, because when small businesses grow, our city grow. And those are just a few of the things I will continue to do when reelected as councilman of District C.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Kimbrell, should you earn the vote of the residents of District C, what will be your top 3 priorities in your first year in office?
So I would say building much more affordable housing. That's a huge need that we have with the 40,000 units that are needed for affordable housing. Expanding public transit. We talked about bus rapid transit, more frequent service, and also connecting our bike service into the city, and then increasing our education opportunities. I'm a parent and I want universal pre-K so that we take burden off of working class people and get kids at an early head start into school and providing that funding.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrell. Ms. Foster, should you earn the vote of the residents of District C, what will be your top 3 priorities in your first year in office?
Absolutely. First thing, building more affordable housing and more housing in general, because there is no New Orleans without New Orleanians. Second, I want to implement some much needed reforms to safety and permits and all the offices in the administration that touch small businesses. I've worked with small businesses in Algiers for the last 5 years, and y'all, it's so hard for them right now. And third, I want to centralize a lot of our financial data for the budget, including the sheriff's office, so that we are clear on where our money is coming from and going.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. These next round of questions are simply yes or no questions. Ms. Foster, do you support the nurses at UMC in their fight for a fair contract? Yes or no?
Yes, I do.
Mr. King, do you support the nurses at UMC in their fight for a fair contract? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrell, do you support the nurses at UMC in their fight for a fair contract?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Kimbrell, do you support the building of the grain train in the 9th Ward? Yes or no?
No.
Mr. King, do you support the building of the grain train in the 9th Ward? Yes or no?
No.
Ms. Foster, do you support the building of the grain train in the 9th Ward?
No.
Ms. Foster, have you received any campaign funds from Entergy or people in PACs associated with Entergy? Yes or no?
No, I have not.
Mr. Kimbrell, have you received any campaign funds from Entergy or people in PACs associated with Entergy? Yes or no?
No, I'm not.
Mr. King, have you received any campaign funds from Entergy or people in PACs associated with Entergy? Yes or no?
No.
Mr. King, will you support using your powers vested in you as a council member to fight for a living wage of at least $15 an hour? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrell, will you commit to using your powers vested in you as a council member to fight for a living wage of at least $15 an hour? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Foster, will you commit to using your powers vested in you as a council member to fight for a living wage of at least $15 per hour? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I want to say it has been my pleasure to help moderate Step Up for Action's District C forum as we are looking to not only vote in the person who we believe best represents our district, but who also best represents the entire city. As you know, you represent an area, but there will be times when your vote matters and it will impact other areas of our city. So I am very, very honored to stand in as the moderator to represent Step Up for Action's Council District C Forum. So at this time, each of you will have a 1-minute closing, and we will start with you, Ms. Foster. 1 minute.
Thank you all for having me. It has been an absolute honor to join you and to get to answer these questions. I think my closing thought to all of you as you pursue education in this election and you are figuring out who it is you'd like to vote for is just to be wary of easy answers, because there are no easy answers in this incredibly complicated city and in the systems that have gotten us here to date. Push us, hold us accountable today and after Election Day. I thank you all for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Mr. Kimbrough, 1-minute closing.
I'd just like to say thank you, Step Up for having me for this forum. I think that, we need to buckle down and take a hard look at ourselves as a city. We are facing, a mounting number of crises that, have multiple complex solutions that we have to work together to get through. I'm ready to fight for the city. I've served my country, served the state. I'm ready to do it at the local level. I really appreciate everybody dialing on, and I will see you all in November or October, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. King, you have a 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you, Dr. Wire, for moderating this forum. Thank you, Step Up, for putting this forum together. I'm not going to tell you what I want to do, what I plan on doing. I'm going to tell you what I've done. That's bring results to the people of this city and results to the people of this district. And once reelected as your councilman for District C, I will continue to work for an equitable city for everyone in the city and in the district, and continue to make this city the best city in Louisiana and one of the best cities in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I want to remind all of you who are listening via this platform that early voting starts September 27th. Early voting ends October 4th. Election day is October 11th. I will encourage you to please get out and vote and bring somebody with you. While we do not know who you will vote for, what we do know is our next representative for Council District C is inside of this chat. So I wish you well. Each of you as candidates, I wish you well, and thank each of you for joining us. I will now turn it over to Maria, one of the founders of Step Up for Action, for her closing remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for making time to be on this evening's call, and thank you to all of the candidates who've made time to provide answers to our questions. This is very helpful in our own research process during the political season, and we wish you all the best in your races. And thank you to everyone who made time to join this evening. We hope you've gained knowledge more than you came in. So I wish you all a safe evening, and yeah, y'all have a blessed one.
Best wishes, candidate Foster. Best wishes, candidate Kimbrough. Best wishes, Councilman King. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.